never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
All right, y'all, we're here. We're live. You're watching Buster Unmasked. And look, before I forget, because y'all know I'll forget, like this video, share this video, and go to Buster H.R. Johnson on YouTube and subscribe for me. Hit that notification bell so you know when the next video is coming out. Look, guys, tonight's a special night. We got a bona fide wrestling legend on here tonight. Look, man, if you're a fan of the Superstation, WTBS and 605, you know exactly who my guest tonight is, man. Let me tell you something. He has shared the rings with the likes of everybody from Bob Backlund to Carlos Colon to Ric Flair and everywhere in between. He is a veteran of over 50 years inside the squared circle, and he's still out here doing it today. Without any further ado, I bring to you the one and only Action Mike Jackson. Mike.
Hey, thank you for that kind introduction. You do that again, I'll have to come back and be on the show again.
There you go, man. That's the thing. I try to give everybody their own personal introductions, dude. It is so my pleasure to have you here on this show, man. I'll be honest with you. I may talk to young guys either just breaking in the business or been in the business 5-10 years. So it is such a privilege when I get to talk to guys like you who have been in this business so long. You've seen so many changes through the years. And here's the thing. I know that you made your debut in 1972. I debuted in 1992, and it was hard to get in the wrestling business then. But I would imagine in 1972, it was even harder. Is there any way you could take us through how you actually got in the wrestling business?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. When I was talking to you earlier, I can feel exactly like you did. When I was 8 years old, I saw wrestling on television. And of course, now when I was 8 years old, that was back in the 50s. And it was black and white, 3 or 4 channels. You know, you had to get up and turn the channel. You didn't have remote control, none of that kind of stuff. But I was hooked with it from the very first time I ever saw it. I continued to watch it as long as I could. Finally, my family moved to Birmingham, where there was, on Monday night, there was Boutwell City Auditorium, NWA, Nick Goulas, if you remember that name, Nick Goulas, yes, Championship Wrestling. I went every Monday night just as a fan. I was the biggest fan in the world. I'll never forget the first time I ever walked into Boutwell Auditorium to a live match, opened those doors and saw that ring sitting in that middle of the auditorium and, 4,000 or 5,000 people there that night. I was hooked from the get-go. But to answer your question, being hard was unbelievably hard. People just didn't get in that business, in this business years ago as easily as they do it today. I went to Nick Goulas and I talked to him. I pretty much begged him, give me a chance. Let me referee a match. Let me do something. And he just didn't want to have anything to do with it. But luckily, there was a guy that I went to high school with that his dad promoted wrestling. God works in mysterious ways, and this is a God thing for me.
Right.
And I met him. I went and talked to him, and I said, look, I just want to be a wrestler. He said, my dad will let you wrestle. I thought, that's pretty easy. I can't believe it's that easy. Nick Goulas kicked me out the back door every week. So for 13 weeks, I wrestled. And I don't want to belittle these guys or anything, but it was what we called outlaw wrestling. We would go to a show and we would hope that it would run. We would hope that the commission wouldn't shut us down. We'd hope enough people would come that we might get a couple of dollars pay off. Sometimes we got some, sometimes we got none. But the guy's name was Bob Milliken. And I appreciate him to this day. I don't care if I made a dime. He gave me a chance when nobody else would. His sons wrestled, and we went from different areas. I finally got away from Boutwell Auditorium and decided I was going to do it with those guys. And again, it was just a Friday, Saturday, sometimes just a Saturday. You may get paid, you may not get paid. You may have been through this, Buster. I don't know. You may have to go put the ring up and put the chairs up and take the ring down and do all that and then go out and wrestle, but I didn't care. But oddly enough, Nick Goulas sent two of his people that worked for him to a show that they were at. And the guys went back and told Nick Goulas on the Monday night, hey, there's two guys that you need to get for your organization. I was one of them and my tag team partner. So we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And my first big time match was Christmas night of 1973. I wrestled at the Boutwell Auditorium in front of 5,000 people, wrestled a guy named Dr. Ken Ramey with the interns, if you remember that name.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
And had a great match. And then my partner and I had a degree. I was working for the highway department. I was a civil engineer. I quit that. He was the sales manager at Wood Chevrolet car place. He quit, moved to Nashville. We were going to be the greatest tag team. Was going to win the world. And that's how it started.
Man, look, I didn't get to debut in front of 5,000 people and all that, but pretty much all the same stuff, man. When I broke in, setting up the ring, pay your dues, whether it's chairs or whatever, wrestle, tear the ring down.
Exactly.
If you were the one hauling the ring, haul the ring to the next place.
But Buster, I appreciate that. If I wouldn't have done it from the ground up, I might not appreciate it like some of these guys that are in the business today that just all of a sudden came to somebody with $200. I'll train you in 30 minutes, and next week you're in the main event. That wasn't me. I worked my way up from the, and I've been in the business 55 years wrestling, but I've been in the business probably 57, putting up rings, refereed some but my dream was to be a wrestler. And then when I finally got into the wrestling, I got away from the other stuff, but it's like you and I were talking about earlier. It was something that I wanted to do. I didn't care about anything else. I was a pretty good baseball player, played college baseball, as a matter of fact. But I gave up everything to be a professional wrestler because that's really all I ever wanted to do. I was hooked from the very first time I ever saw a match. Can't even tell you who was wrestling that day, but I was 8 years old. I was right there with them. Every blow they blowed, I was there. Every shot they took, I was taking. I loved it, man.
I was the same way. I don't remember. Truthfully, I don't never remember life before wrestling. I mean, as long as I can remember, wrestling's it's been a part of my life, whether I was a fan or later on when I got into it. But that's all I ever wanted to be too. And wrestling's kind of like it's a dream. I mean, like you said, it was a dream for you. I mean,
exactly.
The wrestling business is kind of built on dreamers, guys who want to do this, want to be something other than just a 9-to-5 guy for whatever reason,
Absolutely.
I would say all of us are different, but man, I was infatuated, I guess, from the first day I saw it. It was like, it was kind of like being a mixture of a rock band, a athlete, and an actor at times, a celebrity. I mean, it was kind of
Yep.
all rolled up into one, man. And
Absolutely.
I can't sing, so I knew that was out of the question.
Me too.
I don't think I'm an actor either. That's the thing, man. Most pro wrestlers, the best of them, I don't think they're actors. I think they're accentuating who they really are. That their
Yeah.
personalities.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And even when I broke in, there was no indie wrestling in 1992. It was still outlaw wrestling. If you wasn't with one of the regional companies, a bigger company like Lawler and them, or wherever else, there might have been a few other little remnants of territory still kind of trying to run some regional wrestling. If
Right.
you were anything else, you were it was outlaw wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. And and when I finally got that first break and moved to Nashville, it was territories. I know it's hard. People probably don't remember territories. Young people listen to your podcast, probably don't even know what territories are. But territories, when we moved to Nashville, we were wrestling every night of the week. There was 2 towns every single night of the week. And there was no wrestling on Sunday at that time. And there was 2 or 3 TVs every Saturday and a show that night. So me and my partner were wrestling probably at least, I'd say 6 to 8 times a week. But, that's what we dreamed of. That's what we quit everything to go do. Everything fell into place. I was blessed. We were 2 smaller guys, but we moved. Like I said, we moved to Nashville, and it was Birmingham on Monday night, or it was Memphis on Monday. Tuesday night would be Batesville, Mississippi, or somewhere in Kentucky, and then Wednesday night would be Nashville or Evansville, Indiana. Every night was 2 towns, so you were on one side or the other, and it was great. I mean, we were making good money, more money than I ever made in my life, and it was really good. We were traveling somewhere every night. It was a dream come true, just like you said. It's like a drug. It was in your system, and you wasn't going to kick it.
Well, I've never got to experience the every night of the week, man. The most I ever got to work on a couple of decent runs for a couple of years was probably 3 to 4 nights a week, maybe sometimes 5. Yeah. And if you had a TV taping, obviously, you know how tapings go. Depending on how many shows, you're liable to work 2, 3. I used to go to up in Arkansas for Bill Ash, and he would record all these matches and sell them overseas somewhere. So you liable to go in one day for Bill Ash. You liable to work 5, 6 times, because he's trying to get the most amount of matches while you're there out of the guys so he can sell them. Didn't ever make a dime off of it, hardly. Not enough to even pay for gas. But, man, loved it, the experience. I'm with you 100%, man. It's just when you're first getting in, that's all you care about. You really don't even care about the money when you first get in. All you care about is being there,
Yep. First 13 months, I didn't care anything about it. But when I started doing it for a living, and you had to pay bills, and you had to make a living, and you had to live on it, then it became a little bit different. But I knew Bill Ash real well. I wrestled Bill Ash many times. What a tremendous worker he was. Wow. I knew he passed away. I hated that.
Yeah, smart dude to the business. Oh. Him and his dad both made some of the best wrestling boots you could ever buy anywhere, from my opinion,
All my boots, every pair that I have come from Bill Ash.
And they last forever.
Exactly.
They last forever. I think on my boots, the only thing I've ever had to do mostly is just resole them every few years, and that's about it. Yep. But and here's the thing: most people don't realize that, like around our area, Jerry Lawler back in the day, let's say early '80s, late '70s, like you said, they wasn't just running one town; there were two crews running 2 separate towns on those nights. So, man, I don't think people can imagine that much going on. That wrestling really being that big and that hot, and it really was, man.
Everywhere we went was pretty much sold out. I mean, it was just packed every week. Like I said, the money was good. We weren't used to making any kind of money like that, because when I first started, if we got a couple of dollars, we were lucky. But now you're on guarantees, and the houses are good, and it was really good. Made a good living at it. I can't complain. If I had it to do all over again, I would know a little bit more than I know now, but I would do it. But you know, the only bad thing about a territory, the only bad thing I can even think about is that after you've been there a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And of course, it's a little bit different with WWE and some of those guys, but you kind of get old, you know, you kind of get worn out. You're not as fresh. I mean, you're not as exciting as you were, and you don't draw as much. And that's how I got with when you were talking about Georgia Championship Wrestling and that NWA with Crockett and Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson, that group. That's how I got there, because when I was with Goulas and I began to fade out, those 7 day bookings or 7 8 week bookings became 4, and then down to 2, and finally you're thinking, we're not making any money now. We're going to have to do something. You know, you want to quit. I mean, I was very discouraged. Probably 75, 76, and I got very discouraged. I thought, man, it's time for me to quit. I've done it, got out of it. And then Jerry Jarrett calls me. He says, look, I know you from Tennessee days, because his mom was part of the booking group over there. You know, his mother was there, Christine. And Jerry Jarrett was a great guy. And he said, man, come over to Atlanta. I went over to Atlanta and worked. The first time I went to Atlanta, you know, Ole Anderson, those guys didn't know me. They had no idea who I was. But I wrestled a guy named Ray Stevens, the AWA heavyweight champion, Crippler Ray Stevens. He was a great wrestler and had an unbelievable match with him on TV. And as soon as that came back, the Ole Anderson stopped me in the hall and said, can you come back next week? And I thought, well, yeah. And I got a check in the mail that was about 3 times as much as I was usually making for those nightly long trips. I thought, yeah, I can come back. And they brought several people with me. And I was on Atlanta TV from probably, I'd say 74, 5, 6, somewhere around in there, till probably 84, until it changed over. And then, you know, then it turned into WCW, and I'd worked for those guys kind of behind the scenes there for about 4 or 5 years. Then went to WWF from 88 to 92. So, you know, when you try to get out of this stuff, it's not as easy as you thought it was going to be.
Right. And I'm thinking somewhere around 78 is what you said, or that's when you kind of debuted for either Georgia Championship Wrestling or World Championship Wrestling.
Probably 75, about 74 and a half, into 74, early 75 is probably when you were first time in there. Yeah, because WCW came in about 84, 85, and kind of behind the scenes took over and changed everything around. You know, a lot of guys were let go. They kept some of us. But you know, we were just we were just called job guys, enhancement talent, whatever you want to build it up. I don't care what you call it. Yeah. I was happy with what I did. You know, I was never a star. I say this all the time, and I'm in the process of hopefully going to write my book. Guys wants me to write a book. He's called me several times. You know, I don't care what I was. I was never a star. I'm not a star today. But I helped make a lot of stars. You know, I helped guys. I'd have promoters come to me and say, look, you got to work with this guy. You got to teach this guy something. You got to show him something. And this guy's going to be, you know, main event at the Omni or main event at the Superdome, you know, and I'm not. But they say, teach this guy something. Show this guy how to do this, you know. And so I'm proud of what I did. I mean, I don't care if they want to call me a job. They call me anything they want to. Just call me.
Well, let's talk about that, because I was the same way when I first went to work for Lawler on Channel 5. That's what I did. I just put guys over until they finally gave me a booking sheet one day and put me in a town, you know. I just did whatever they asked, because, I mean, and nowadays it's almost like if you say the word job boy, it's a 4-letter word where I don't take offense to it.
No.
What's your opinion of that? Because, I mean, that's what they called you then. When I broke in, we were still job boys.
Yep. And that's what I'm called today. And, you know, Tommy Dreamer's a very good friend of mine and a class act. And Tommy said, we want you to be called enhancement talent. And you can call me whatever you want to call me, but the bottom line is the same bottom line. And, you know, when I was booking, I ended up booking Atlanta TV. I had ended up with about 35, because when they asked me to come back, I told Ole Anderson in that hallway, I said, look, I've got 3 or 4 guys that'll come with me And he said, can they do what you do? I said, well, pretty close. And he said, hey, bring them. So I started bringing guys. I ended up with 37 guys, booking guys all over the country. And, you know, we can call us whatever we want to call us, but we were there to make people look good. So, you know, I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line of it. But we were making money. They were paying us good, and they were treating us good. And, you know, I taught school for 14 years full time. Was that a job? Yeah. Every day I went to school, I was doing a job. Right. So what's the difference?
Right. I agree 100%. Let me ask you this, Ole Anderson. Man, Ole Anderson, everybody's got a varying opinion of Ole Anderson. Some people love Ole. Some people just can't stand Ole. What's your thoughts on Ole and how he was to you?
You know, I probably 85% of the people would be negative on Ole Anderson. I loved him. He treated me like gold. He was straight up. What with Ole was what you saw was what you got. There was no backbiting behind a thing. If he needed to tell you something, he's going to tell you. If you didn't like it, get out. He was good to me. He was one of the guys that I booked with. You know, he booked me. He took care of me on that TV. I had great matches on the TV. I loved working for him. You know, the last time I saw him, I thanked him, and he had a stroke, and I don't know if he really remembered everything I was telling him or knew what I was talking about, but I just told him how much I appreciated him and loved him for all the things that he had done for me, because he gave me good bookings, and, you know, he gave me a lot of house shows. I did the Omni several times, and I did a couple of the pay-per-views and stuff that they do. So, you know, I thought he was great. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Nowadays, everybody coddles everybody. Like, it's like they handle these guys with kid gloves. But even in '92, when I broke in, if you did something wrong, somebody would let you know. They'd pull you aside and let you know without a shadow of a doubt what you did wrong and why you shouldn't have done it, you know, and all this. But guys, nowadays it's like everybody gets their feelings hurt. What's your take on that? Because to me, wrestling's a cruel, hard business.
Absolutely,
I mean, it just is, and I don't think soft skin is a detriment in the pro wrestling business, in my opinion.
Absolutely, you know, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I mean, it's like any other, it's a job, it's a business. And, you know, we have to be able to do what it takes to make that business successful. And, you know, if you don't like criticism, the main thing I see nowadays, and the main problem is there's too many wrestlers nowadays that shouldn't be in the business. And I don't want to call names. And matter of fact, I don't even think of any names right now, but I go to shows all the time. I work a lot of independent shows. And, you know, I see guys sitting on the front row cheering and booing and biggest fans in the world. I go back a month later, they're in the dressing room as the manager or a referee or a wrestler and all this kind of stuff. You know, that's what's killing the business. Back in those days when I was talking about being at Boutwell Auditorium, Christmas night, 5,000 people, that was every week. The people, I mean, but it was more wrestling than it was showmanship, and it was, you know, jumping around, flopping around, all this kind of stuff. And then on the other side of that, in the Memphis territory, which was Jarrett, Lawler and Jarrett were running that, Nick Gudis was running the Nashville side, you know, they're drawing 14, 15,000 at Mid-South. I was at Mid-South Coliseum on a sellout when they turned people away, and they probably had, I don't know how many that would hold, but I know it was over 13, 14,000 people, you know. Right. And you couldn't make a soul in that place believe that wasn't real. It was tough back in the days. A lot tougher than it is today.
Well, let's talk about that right there. I'm glad you said that, because here's my philosophy about that. And it ain't my philosophy. Bill Dundee told me and my brother this. He said, if you don't believe who you are, how are you going to sell that to the fans? How are they going to believe who you are? Do you feel like, I don't remember wanting to be, obviously we're wrestlers, so you pick up something from everybody you watched. You know what I mean? Every wrestler that you growed up watching, obviously you pick things, certain things from them, and you try to incorporate them. But I never remember when I wanted, even as a little kid, wanted to be a wrestler. I never wanted to be Jerry Lawler or Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes. I wanted to be me as a wrestler. I wanted to wrestle those guys. And I feel like a lot of times now, like you said, you see the guy at ringside, and a month later he's in the dressing room, he's a manager, or he's in the ring wrestling. And I feel like there's too many guys who don't really want to be wrestlers. They want to pretend to be wrestlers. Yeah. And I feel like there's a difference there.
I agree 100%. Yes. Too many guys, not enough fans. Too many wrestlers and not enough fans. The fans should be the fans.
Now most of the wrestlers are the fans.
Yeah. That's unbelievable, isn't it? You're right.
Well, let's talk about the Omni, because, man, when I was a kid, man, watching the Superstation, dude, the Omni, it was like the Mid-South Coliseum. It was like the Mid-South Coliseum in Atlanta. Man, I always wanted to go there, never got to. What was it like working in the Omni?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was always going to be a sellout. You know, they'd have anywhere from 14 to 15, 16,000 people. You come out of the dressing room, they put a spotlight on you. You have great I mean, there's so many people in there that every move you make, you know, it was just oohing and awing. And, you know, going back to the dressing room, you're patting them on the back, high-fiving. You know, it was great. I mean, I loved it. I wrestled there, wrestled at the, I was just telling the Mid-South Coliseum in front of, I don't know how many sold out there. The Superdome, I worked for Bill Watts there. You know, those kind of shows I didn't get all the time, but when I got them, I really appreciate them because, man, working in front of that many people and, you know, people recognizing you or cheering you or calling your name and all that kind of stuff is it's unbelievable. It's a rush.
Right. And since you mentioned Bill Watts, let's talk about Bill Watts for a second. He's kind of like Ole. There's people who love Bill Watts, and then there's other people who hate Bill Watts. What was it like for you working for Bill Watts?
I love Bill Watts. I worked for Bill Watts in Shreveport. Ernie Ladd was on a show in Atlanta sometime. He came to Atlanta, and he saw me, and he said, look, I like what you do. He was helping with a booking. He said, would you come to Shreveport? I said, yeah. See, this is how this stuff just led from one group to another. You know, by that time, Dusty had gone to Tampa, was running Florida Championship Wrestling. So I'm flying over there every other Wednesday to do TV. Now I'm going to Shreveport on the other Wednesdays to do that TV. And working for Bill Watts, he was the smartest man. I don't know if he was the smartest, but he was the most fair man I ever worked for in my life. I did the Superdome. When he asked me to do the Superdome, whatever my opponent got paid, he paid me. Even though I wasn't his full-time guy, he was fair, honest. There was a matter of fact, you mentioned Bill Dundee's a good friend too over the years. Bill Dundee was booking there part of the time that I was there. Smart guy, very smart man. And but they treated you fairly, and they sit down and tell you, this is what we expect out of you. This is what we want. There's no hidden stuff. That way you didn't have to come back to the dressing room and get cussed out because you didn't do something or you did something. If they didn't want you to do something, they'd tell you. If they wanted you to do something, they'd tell you. If I threw a pretty good drop kick in those days, and I did some pretty good flying head scissors, and they'd say, hey, we didn't get you here to try to body slam guys. We want you throwing those head scissors. We want you diving through those ropes. We want you walking on that top rope. I want you doing everything you do somewhere else. Don't copy, like you was talking about. Don't try to copy what this guy's doing. Do Mike Jackson. And the Bill was straight with that. Bill Dundee was straight with that. This is what we want. This is what we expect. And if you can't do it, we're going to get somebody else to do it. So, you know, I had a great run there. I made a lot of money for the Watts. And if I ever wanted to do a house show or two, I'd say, hey, Bill, you know, I'm gonna be over in this area, you know, a couple of times. Could you put me on that Friday night, Saturday night show? He said, yeah, sure, no problem. Respect. I had their respect. You know, I did what I was told. I kept my mouth shut. I wasn't a troublemaker. You know, when I was going back to what I was telling you, when I was booking Atlanta TV back in the latter days, I had 37 guys working for me. I was filling out the sheets. I was saying, okay, you guys are working with the Road Warriors. You guys are working with Dusty Rhodes. I did all that myself. And, you know, I had guys come up and say, well, you know, I'm not doing that. I'd say, well, hey, get your bag and go. You can't do what we ask you to do. We don't need you. And that's the business end of this thing that people don't understand. You know, I've done a few Impact TVs. Like, I don't know if you remember that. But,
yes, sir.
I did a few, and guys come up to me, ask me every time I go somewhere, hey, how can I get on TNA? Hey, how can I get on Impact? I say, buy a ticket. Tell them they need to get a ticket because, they're not ready for that. They think they're ready for that just because they can jump over the top rope backwards or something. But that's not all wrestling is. You got to be able. It's you well know you can't go out. It's hard to go out there 10 or 15 minutes and do a good match and keep the people involved in it so they don't boo you out of the stadium.
Right.
It's not as easy as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. People watch wrestling and they.
Yeah, they can call it entertainment. They can call it this. They can call it whatever they want to do it. But you still have to go out there. If it's 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case might be, you got to go out there and you got to keep those people involved. You got to keep them cheering in there instead of sitting there eating popcorn.
And you got to do what they need you to do. Whatever the booker, promoter, the company. If you're a young guy, now if you're already established and got a name, obviously you got to, especially back then, you got an image to protect. But when you're trying to get in the wrestling business, you shouldn't be having any qualms about putting anybody over. I don't care who they are. No. Definitely not Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors, any of these guys. I mean, if you're a new guy and you're worried about getting beat by the Road Warriors, you definitely, I think, need to be somewhere else doing something else.
You need to be at Walmart getting those carts out of the parking lot. That's exactly where you need to be. Yeah.
Well, look.
But go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, that's when I was teaching school, I worked for some principals and they tell me to do some things, and I thought, well, I really don't want to do that, but I did it because they were the boss, and that's the same way we're wrestling. When I go and I work for, we got a big show coming up in Clarksville, I think, coming up in just a couple of weeks. I'm excited about being there. Whatever the promoter needs me to do, that's what I'm going to do.
And that's how you get your respect, man. That's how you earn these guys' respect, and that's how you get to hopefully work your way up the card, is by, you got to be dependable, reliable. First and foremost, dependable and reliable, and just do what they asked you to do, man. That's like I said, I did jobs at the USWA until one Saturday morning, they handed me a booking sheet. And I'm looking around like, I had to look at it a couple of times to make sure they didn't hand it to me by mistake, I'm like, you sure about this?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But you got to be dependable. If you plan on, you got to prove to these people that you're willing to do whatever needs to be done for the company, for the event, for the wrestling card. And man, you mentioned it earlier, drop kicking head scissors, man, flying head scissors. That is synonymous. When you said it, I could picture you doing the drop kick, doing the head scissors with the old school. I want to say it was red and blue or red, white, and blue suit on.
I had some of that. Yep.
Man, definitely. I could picture it. And talk to me about what it was like during that early 80s of WTBS, because I was born in 74. You were wrestling before I was born. So, but man, I remember as a kid, man, probably about 80, 81, up until about 84 or 5, that's kind of, man, the WTBS, the Superstation was huge. Hot. It was the biggest. Bigger than, it reached more households than WWF did at the time. We didn't even have USA Network at that time.
Yeah.
I don't think it come along until where I live, probably till about 85 or 6 is probably when we got the probably about 85, I would say, is when we got the USA Network. But man, Memphis Wrestling and Georgia Championship Wrestling, and you mentioned Bill Watts, man. We used to get some UWF on TV out of Little Rock. When they would run Little Rock, we would get sometime a Little Rock TV station would feed in. Ever so often, for some reason, on a Little Rock station, we'd get some world class out of Texas. Did you ever work any world class down there?
I never did. I never had an opportunity, and I wrestled on shows with like the Von Erichs and people like that, but I never did. Never was asked, and if I would have thought about it, I really didn't know too much about what was going on over there. I would have probably called over and said, "Hey, I'd love to come over and do one," and they would have probably let me come. But I never did. Never did.
Right.
But let me tell you one thing about the respect. This is kind of a funny story. If you got time for a little story,
We got
I
plenty
was
of time.
wrestling. The Road Warriors came to Atlanta. I don't know, probably 74, 75, 76, somewhere around in there. The first one to come was Animal. And if you remember, well, you were just a kid, you won't remember, but he was dressed in like this construction outfit with these little blue jean shorts on and all. Oh, he was a killer.
Pictures. I've seen
Oh,
pictures in
gosh.
wrestling magazines.
He would, if he clotheslined you, anybody in the world could say anything they wanted to, but it would blow your head off. So Ole Anderson came to me. That was, and finally, here come Hulk, and I got together, and finally he'd come back and he would say, "Okay, you got to work with these guys, or they're going to kill somebody." And I thought, well, Ole, I appreciate that, but I'm the guy they're killing.
Right.
And, but I had great matches with those guys. I really, believe it or not, they probably let me do more stuff to them than anybody else did that wasn't, part of the big time circuit. But in Birmingham, Hawk had already passed away, and Road Warrior Animal came to Birmingham to do a show for Wrestle Birmingham, and I was there, and I think I did a junior title match or something, and Paul Orndorff was supposed to come, not Paul Orndorff, Paul Ellering was supposed to come and be his partner, but Paul didn't show up. He went to the promoter and asked if I would be his partner. And he thanked me. He came and said, "I just want to tell you how much I thank you for doing what you did to help us out." And that meant a lot to me. And he asked me for one of my T-shirts, which I had to give him. I didn't even charge him because I was afraid he'd kill me if I didn't. But I gave him a T-shirt. But that was respect that he gave me, and that they had. When they would say, "Okay, you hit us with a couple of drop kicks, boom." Nobody else could do that. They would let nobody else do those kind of things. And, but that showed me that they cared a lot about me. And one day, I'll just tell you this real quick. One day we were on Atlanta TV, and Hawk, he got me good. I mean, sometimes I don't care what people say. Sometimes you're in there, you get about knocked out. He hit me. I saw stars. So I saw him in the dressing room, and, he had that old deep, raspy voice. He said, "Hey, kid, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you." I said, "Look, it's TV. If I'm back there on there again, you hit me harder the next time." I wish I would have never told him that, because he did. Yeah. But, that again, that's the respect that I have from guys like that. And, Ric Flair. I have a tremendous match on it's on the internet. I never put it on there because I don't do Facebook and stuff, but there's a match on there that was so good in 1988. It was the Chic match of the week, me against Ric Flair. And those TV matches would go anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 minutes. We went almost 12, 10 to 12, because it was so good. Man, I put him in the figure four. I suplexed him over the top rope. I didn't do it. He did it. I mean, he was 16-time world champion. I didn't say a word. I did what he told me to do. And I couldn't believe it. But you may have seen that on the online or whatever sometime before. But I've got a great match out there with Ric Flair. That's the kind of respect guys that like that didn't have to give me any respect gave to me. And that's what these guys need to understand in this business. Anybody can go out there and jump around, but you got to paint a picture. And you got to make people believe, even if they're sitting out there saying, "I know that ain't real," but they somewhere down in the deepest part of their brain and their heart, they're saying, "How did he do that? That looked like that hurt. I don't care what anybody says, that hurt." That's what you got to do.
Here's my theory on that. They pay their money because they want to come there and believe for them few hours at least. They want to believe. That's why they pay their money.
And there's always going to be wrestling fans. Always going to be wrestling fans that you could put them in a dressing room and they still would go out and be just as happy in the world believing. And that's good. That's what we got to have. That's why there's football fans. That's why there's tennis fans, baseball fans. We got wrestling fans, and there's going to be, but they're dwindling down every day more and more because people are becoming wrestlers instead of being fans.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. My grandpa, we were talking beforehand. I told you he was blind.
Yeah.
and like I said, I watched wrestling with him for as long as I could remember. Literally as long as I could remember. And even when I got in the wrestling business, we never, ever, ever smartened him up. Never told him a thing, man. Never. He would ask you all kind of questions about wrestling, man, and your opponents and stuff. And we never told him anything different, man, because he believed 100% in wrestling.
Well, my mother and daddy passed away at 92 and 90, and they never knew anything. I just told them if I got hurt, I'd call them and let them know. Don't worry about nothing. That's all I ever told them. They had asked me stuff about it like what you're talking about, but that was the extent of the conversation. You know, this is a protected business. Now it's not. I do seminars all the time, Buster, and what I start this off, and I end up with it. You know, anybody can be a worker, but what you got to do. I mean, anybody can be a wrestler, but when you learn worker, that's when you got it made.
Yes, sir. I'm with you 100% on that. There is a big difference in knowing how to wrestle and learning how to work. You know,
learning how to work is good.
And even Absolutely.
Go ahead, Buster. I lost the sound. I lost kind of my sound, I think. Somebody tried to call in.
No, I was just going to say.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you great.
Good.
Even in 1992, there was still, it was dwindling down, but there was still kayfabe. We were still,
yes.
We were still had to uphold that. You didn't talk about wrestling like we are now, or with other fans. If somebody on the street asked you about wrestling, you didn't talk about it like that. It was real 100%.
Didn't write books.
Didn't write books. It's one of them situations now where I guess the toothpaste is out of the tube or the mail's been delivered and you can't undeliver it. But man, you've been doing this all these years and you're still doing it, still active, still wrestling. What makes you still do this after all this time?
Well, Buster, I love it. Like I told you, I love it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a Christian and God is good to me and I'm blessed. And I try to share his word everywhere I go. And I think as long as I'm doing this for him instead of for just me, I think God's going to allow me to do it. I'm 73. I'll be 74 in November the 10th. But, I've had several injuries and I'm not near can do what I used to do. But I still get around pretty good. It's like when Dwayne called me about the show coming up in November in Clarksville. I told him, I said, I'll be glad to come and sign pictures, whatever you want me to do, but I want to wrestle somebody, and I don't want to wrestle no old guys. I want somebody young because I like to go. And it helps me to get over, and it helps people to see what, somebody can do at my age.
Right. And here's the thing. You're talking about November. It's actually Saturday, November 2nd. It's put on by SD Enterprises in conjunction with Diamond State Wrestling. It's a pro wrestling legend show, man. These fan fests. Before we run down what's going on and who might be there and the ticket prices, man, over the past probably 5-10 years, these fan fests, these autograph sessions, these meet and greets have become so huge. It's kind of like, it's give a lot of wrestlers a resurgence.
Right.
They're all over the place, and the fans actually, a lot of times the fans seem to flock to those even more than the matches sometimes. What do you think about that, man? All this brand new interest in all these wrestlers, legendary guys, all this old school wrestling out there. It's huge now, man. It's huge.
Yeah, I love them. I go to Charlotte pretty much every year. I do WrestleCade. I've done a few in Philadelphia at the House of Hardcore. I love them because it gives you the ones that come to that are true wrestling fans. They don't care what you tell them. They're there. They're respectful. They greet you. They talk to you. You sign autographs. They have shows there, dinners there. It's just a time where you can really get with the fans. And on the other flip side of that, you get to see some of the guys that you hadn't seen in years. You go to Charlotte, you see Greg the Hammer Valentine, Jake the Snake, Baron Von Raschke, the Four Horsemen, guys that I grew up with wrestling all my life. You get to be with those guys and spend some time with them. So, it's great. And, and guys pass away every year. We lose 2 or 3, 4 or 5 guys a year. Sometimes you get to see these guys before the end times, I love it.
Right. I think it's a great thing, man. We just actually, September 21st, they did a thing in Jackson, Tennessee, Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame thing that I got to be a part of. And there wasn't no matches. There was no wrestling. It was just a meet and greet. It was a tribute to Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. They did a video package for them and stuff and presented them with these customized belts. And then the Hall of Fame ceremony where they inducted the 2024 class into the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. No matches whatsoever. Every single fan stayed till the matter of fact, they were having to push them out when it was over, so you could start shutting the building down and stuff. But I think it's great, man. I think
I love it.
It piques a lot of interest in wrestling, and you get a lot of new fans because it ain't just guys like me, 50 years old or older. Man, there's a lot of these people are bringing their kids, and their kids are learning about these different guys, you guys, and learning about this wrestling how it used to be, man. I think it's an awesome thing.
I do too. I love it. I get to go every year, and I saw Dwayne Huckable is the one doing the big show in Clarksville, and he sent me a picture of the card. And you got Tony Atlas, you got Baby Doll, Tommy Rich, who I spend a lot of time with. Tommy still over here in Alabama, and he still works some for me over here. The Grapplers. Oh man, it was a who's who of professional wrestling coming to that day, and man, I'm really looking forward to it.
I actually had Lynn on. It's probably been a month and a half, or maybe 2 months ago now. They were doing, yes sir, they were doing a show. A couple months ago, they were doing a show, and here's the actual card. Let me see if I can blow it up just a little bit. But I've got a rundown, like you said. It's a Saturday night. It's put on by SD Enterprises in conjunction with Diamond State Wrestling. It's a pro wrestling legend show. It's in Clarksville, Arkansas. It's at the Spike Fakima exhibit building at the fairgrounds in Clarksville. Yeah.
And one good thing, Buster, too, I think 2 to 6, you can just meet and greet and sign autographs and talk and take pictures and then the wrestling that night. So it's going to be a full event. It's going to be a great day. I'm so excited they called me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge thing. Like you said, from 2 to 6 is the fan fest part, the meet and greet. Bell time for the action starts at 7. And like you said, you got the Grapplers. You got Chick Donovan, the Golden Boy, which I've got him coming on tomorrow night.
Yeah, Chick, I know. Tell him I said hello.
I sure will. You got Miranda Gordy, obviously the daughter of Big Bam Bam Terry Gordy.
Yes.
You got Wildfire Tommy Rich. You got Dangerous Doug Gilbert. Brian Kendrick, he was actually down here in Memphis in 2000 when Memphis Championship Wrestling had a WWE developmental deal, or WWF at the time, and we know him as Spanky. He was called Spanky while he was here.
Yeah.
Mr.
Hey,
USA.
Let me tell you a good story about the Gilbert family. Okay. I saw Doug on the card, and I don't know Doug as well as I knew Eddie, but I don't know if you knew his dad, who his dad was, Tommy Gilbert.
I know who he is. Yes, sir. Never got.
Man, I'm telling you, he was over. He was one of the best worker wrestler combinations that you'd ever see. And when we first got into business, this was in about 1970, maybe 5. And we were on that other end, we were in the Birmingham side, the Nashville side, and me and my partner kept saying, "Man, we want to go over to Memphis to the Mid-South Coliseum because they're drawing 13,000, 14,000 people." And I knew who Tommy Gilbert was, and again, he wasn't he didn't have bleach blonde hair. He wasn't a big monster guy with all these muscles. He was just a unbelievable wrestler worker there, and people loved him. And so let me tell you a funny story. Me and my partner, we'd already decided we flew over there. We thought we were big shots. It was the first time that they'd ever had a 2-ring battle royal. If you remember the 2-ring battle royals.
Yes, sir.
And Bobo Brazil was there, Earl Maynard, Lou Thez. I mean, it was unbelievable. And we told each other what was going on. We said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to get in there and we're going to touch every single wrestler in there. I mean, that we were so excited about getting to go. So when we got in the dressing room, Jerry Jarrett came in and he's telling, he's saying, okay, ring one. At the last two guys, everybody, starts in ring one. You get thrown to ring two, then you get eliminated out on the floor.
Yes,
so he said the last two people I want in ring one are Jerry Lawler and Lou Thez. And I thought, wow, that's great. And then I'd never been there before. Keep that in mind. And so they turn people away. There's 14, 15,000 people there. So they said in ring two, we want Tommy Gilbert and Mike Jackson. And I asked my partner, I said, did he say my name? I don't, everybody was looking around saying, who are you talking? Who is that? So anyway, we get into the match. We get eliminated in the second ring with Tommy Gilbert, like we're supposed to. And, we've done everything and we're eliminating guys and they're eliminating guys. And finally, funny story, 3 guys left in ring two is Tommy Gilbert and me, which is supposed to be. And of all those 32 guys left in there, or 30 guys, my tag team partner's still in there. He just got so excited he never got eliminated. So we can't figure out what to do. So we go to Tommy. I mean, Tommy's the expert on this. He's the smart one of the bunch. So he says, all right, he stops me. He does something to me. My partner is supposed to run at him. He ducks. My partner goes over the top rope. Everything worked perfect, but he ruptured a kidney. He was out for about 3 or 4 weeks when he hit the apron.
Ooh, man, and that is a bad. I don't think people realize how dangerous the corner of that apron is right there, man.
Yeah, but it was great working with Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin and Jerry Lawler and those guys. I cherish that. I kept all the memorabilia from it, and and see, we came back next week. The winner of Ring 1 wrestled the winners of Ring 2 in the main event at the Mid-South Coliseum the next Monday night. And that was me and Tommy Gilbert against Jerry Lawler and Lou Thez.
Oh,
so
wow!
I've had some good runs.
Man, yeah, that's big time right there. Eddie, did you get to work with Eddie very much?
I worked with Eddie one time on TV, and we had a super match. The Gilbert family is one of those families that are just kind of way ahead of their times. Eddie Gilbert, I don't care what years he wrestled, he was doing things now that these guys think they're doing. They've invented. Eddie could do all of that stuff. He was that good. He was like a good friend of mine, Hector Guerrero, not Eddie, but Hector Guerrero. He was doing that. I'm doing flying headsters in 1975, diving through ropes and walking ropes and all that. And people think they're doing that. They started that last year. We were doing that stuff years ago. Eddie Gilbert could do stuff in the 70s and 80s that guys think they invented. They didn't invent that. He was doing it way before them.
They just overdo it now. Now they just overdo it. They do it too much.
Yeah, and that's why guys are hurt all the time, and guys are out all the time, and all this kind of stuff. And it's not. Some of it's turned out to be not wrestling anymore. It's just acrobatics. It's just crazy stuff.
Right. Mike, we're gonna start winding it down. I know you're a busy dude, but before we start closing the show out, man, I got to ask you about one guy, Buzz Sawyer.
Woo!
Talk to me about Buzz Sawyer, because I was flipping through the YouTube here a couple nights ago, and I didn't come across a match with you guys, but I came across a match where you're outside the ring with Gordon Soley, I think, at the commentary booth, and there's another guy in the ring wrestling Buzz Sawyer. But I'm sure you wrestled Buzz Sawyer during that time, right? That's what I figured. Talk to me about Buzz, because he's another guy. They say.
I told you I love this guy. I love that guy. Hated Buzz Sawyer. I know he's passed on. God rest his soul. But he in the very beginning when I first met Buzz, he was a heck of a wrestler. I mean, I saw a match with him and Paul Orndorff one time that I thought was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. He was a great wrestler, great worker. But he got to be crazy there toward the end of his life. And he was pretty dangerous, and he liked to hurt guys sometimes. And he would do things that was not needed to be done. And I had some great matches with him. And matter of fact, I saw one the other day with me and him on Atlanta TV. It was a really, really good match, back and forth, up and down, all kind of good stuff. But in the latter years, Buzz changed a lot. I don't know what happened. I don't want to talk bad about the dead, but I hope he got himself right with the Lord before he passed on. But the bottom line is, at the very end, I loved him in the beginning, but he was not easy to love in the end.
Well, different people I've talked to, some people say he would take a lot of liberties at times with the job guys.
And you're out there to do that for him. That's the thing. See, if we're out there to do that for him, why would you take liberties when you're already out there to do what you're supposed to do?
Right. And I look, from a fan standpoint, Buzz Sawyer, how do you not believe that dude? You know what I mean?
Oh, you better believe him, because he was real.
I mean, really, over the top believable.
He was like Kurt Angle. Those guys could wrestle. I saw Buzz Sawyer one day. I'll tell you this. I got to Atlanta early one morning, and I was going to the bathroom, and I heard some commotion in the studio, and I just peeked through the curtain, and Ole was there with Buzz. Now, Buzz looked like he just got off a 3-day drunk. He had on his blue jeans, tucked in his boots, and old tore up shirt. And there was a guy that had won some kind of NCAA Olympic wrestling thing. I don't know what he had won, but he was a big old guy, and he wanted to get into wrestling with Ole, and he went in the ring with Buzz, and Ole got Buzz in the ring. Buzz just ripped him apart. And then they stop, and they let that guy get on top. Buzz would be back on top, rip him apart. Buzz Sawyer was the real deal. You may not like him, but he was the real deal. Him and Kurt Angle, if they had a match, they'd probably tore the whole building down.
And he had legitimate collegiate wrestling experience too. But yeah, guys that he didn't take liberties with, they tend to like Buzz, just because, I mean, when you put him on the card, he's believable.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. He was great. I mean, he was. And if he wanted to work, if he wanted to have a match, nobody could do it any better.
I remember he came through here, man, I want to say it was probably, and I was a kid. I want to say maybe 79 or 80 maybe, and I could be wrong about that. But at that time, if I remember right, the idea was he wasn't but 19 years old, and I think he came in and beat Lawler for the Southern Heavyweight title. And I want to say maybe at that time he was the youngest guy ever to win the Southern Heavyweight title.
Probably was. Yeah. He was believable.
Well, talk to me about some of these. Well, before we get out of here, because I'm about to get it, I get caught up in these conversations and I'll forget something. Okay. From about 84 or 5 is when it made the transition to World Championship Wrestling?
About 84, 85, somewhere in that era.
Okay, talk to me about that switch over. Was there a lot of big changes, or was it kind of seamless? Was it just a switch over in name?
There was a lot of changes. There was a lot of suits came in, changed things around, and and I never did any of the nitros or any of the big things like that. But they still did the TVs in Atlanta for, I don't know, a couple of years or so. Then they started going to the big auditorium when Bischoff and all those guys got involved. They started doing everything from the house shows and all. But we stayed there for probably 2 or 3, 4 years doing doing jobs on the TV when they did the TV shows, and I did a few spot shows for them. So it was pretty good. They had their ideas when they came in. They were going to change things around, and we'd been on TV for 12, 14 years. And they didn't want the same guys on there, which I understand that. It was a big change, and they had their own guys, own ideas. They were having their the power plants and the other places that they were grooming guys to come in and do stuff. And so we were kind of out about that time, but it was understandable. That's just business. That's business I understand and respect.
Talk to me about working for the WWF, because that's something I didn't know. I had no clue whatsoever.
Yeah, in 1988, Terry Garvin, who I'd worked with in Atlanta years ago, called me one day and said, "Look, I had a bunch of guys working for me, and he said, "Would you come and bring some guys to do our TVs? Mostly in the South. Anywhere in Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, Carolinas, stuff like that." And I said, "Yeah, by all means." So I made more money with those guys than I ever made money in my life. You just go do it like a 2-day deal. That was before Raw was there, and
Right.
and SmackDown. They didn't have all that. They just did a Monday night TV and a Tuesday night, Wednesday night. So you'd go for 2 days, and they would take care of all expenses. And I'd take some guys over there and had some good matches with some good guys. But again, I'd been on TV for probably at that time 15, 16, 18 years. So they didn't want a guy that they'd been on there for long, beat up. So I didn't do a lot with them, but I booked guys for them, and I took guys there, worked behind the scenes. So I had a pretty good run. I was pretty excited about what I was doing. First time I was making a lot of money and wouldn't have to get out there and get myself killed.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Do you prefer working behind the scenes or being in the ring? Even
I
back
want to be
then,
in the ring.
Okay.
As long as the good Lord let me do it, I'm going to do it. And then when that's over and I know I can't do anything else, then I'd love to work behind the scenes. We run shows over here for fundraisers, and I still help some of the guys around here that run independent shows, book stuff and stuff. But I like being out there in the action, until I'm going to do it till I can't do it anymore.
Well, you mentioned Tommy Dreamer. Talk to me a few minutes about working TNA, getting a call from TNA I guess it was out of nowhere.
Well, I know a guy named Johnny Swinger. I don't know if you know Johnny Swinger.
I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, he had put a bug in Tommy Dreamer's ear about me, and when I went to Charlotte to do the big fan fest there, I had a match, and I asked him if he would watch just a little bit of it. He said, "I'm going to watch all of it." I didn't believe him because people tell you that all the time, but he watched the entire match. And when I came back, he was a big wheel in TNA and Impact at that time. He was a pretty important person, and he asked me if I wanted to come to Philadelphia and do the House of Hardcore. I said, absolutely. Flew me down. I did that one. Then he said, "Well, you're pretty good on that." I worked with, matter of fact, wrestled Johnny Swinger, and crowd loved it. And he said, "Would you come do an Impact show?" And and the idea was that I was 70. At that time, I was 70, and they were going to put me against Johnny Swinger. But he kept saying it was going to be M. Jackson was coming. They were thinking Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks.
Right.
So when I come out, everybody, thought, "Oh, what the heck? This is stupid." Matter of fact, Scott D'Amore wasn't for it. He was the boss there, and he wasn't really for it. Dreamer talked him into it, but the match was so good. I don't know if you saw it, but it was so good that it went viral. And before, when I came back to the dressing room, all the wrestlers, men and women, were there, gave me a standing ovation. And
wow.
He pulled me off. Scott D'Amore pulled me off to the side and said, "Hey, will you make some interviews for me?" And they offered me a contract. They were going to give me a contract, and that was in March of 2020, and the COVID hit. And then they went to dark. They did the shows where there was no people there, and they couldn't sign anybody. So I went back and did about 3 or 4 pay-per-views in the next couple of years or so, and I did a show with a TV show with Matt. With Trey McGill for the X Division title last year. So it's been great, and they pay great. They treat you like gold. And Tommy Dreamer was a good friend to help me get there. But again, I understand I'm 73 years old. I don't look near as good as I used to. And they got a dressing room full of unbelievable young talent. And they don't have a place for guys like me. But if I get a show or two and they call me and want me to do something, I love it. I'm headed that way.
Dude, I think man, for 74 years old, I think you look great. Honestly, some of these, here's the thing about wrestlers. Some of them try to stay looking like what they looked like when they were young guys.
No, it won't work.
And they don't embrace just getting older and being older. And I feel like, man, you 100% have embraced it, and I think it works for you. I do. I mean, The
I
pictures I
work out.
seen,
I go to the gym every day, 7 days a week. I do what I can do. I don't do any heavy stuff. I just lift for toning, and then I do a lot of cardio for my legs and my wind, and that's what I do. And and with God's blessings, I'm still doing it. And I don't know if I got 74 more years left, but I'm still gonna keep doing it till I can't do it anymore.
well, let me ask you this: what was it like to? I mean, how long had it been since you had been on a big time TV show like Impact?
Uh, you mean recently?
Yeah, like when that from the last time you were on like WWF or WCW or something to I mean I'm sure in between you've done a lot of companies that have TV, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done a
to
lot of those fight
get back
TVs
on
and different things.
national TV,
Yeah.
what was it like for you?
Yeah, I did the NWA TNA for Billy, whatever, I can't think of his name. I did it for
Corgan.
those guys. Uh, yeah, I worked a lot of them, but I didn't do any. I went there in 2020 for the first Impact show, and that was I probably hadn't been on a big major TV probably for the last 10 or 12 years, I would imagine, somewhere like around that time.
Had to feel good, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just appreciate. They did it right over there across the street where the Atlanta Braves play at Roxy Theater, and had a big sellout crowd right there in Atlanta. And I've done that one, and I've done several for them, and I've done probably 4 or 5 pay-per-views.
That's
So
cool.
I'm just flattered if they still want me. I'm just tickled to death.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I dig that. I think that's awesome. So let me ask you this, and I got a couple questions, and then we're gonna close it out. Favorite territory or place out of all the places you've worked? What's your favorite?
I like Mid-South. I like working for Bill Watts. Probably I like working for. There's nobody that I didn't like working for, but I like Bill Watts because, like I told you before, he was the kind of guy that would whatever, if he paid you $100, he gave me $100. He didn't say, well, you came this far, that guy came that far, and here's a little less or whatever. He was always fair and right up front. You knew what to expect. I like working for Ole. I worked for Dusty Rhodes in Tampa and Dory Funk and the Graham. Worked for the Grahams. Loved them all. They flew me over there. I worked for Carlos in Puerto Rico. They flew me over there. I like working for all of them. There's not a one that I didn't appreciate. But I just always was just partial to Bill Watts. I just like working for Bill Watts.
Right. So, favorite person, favorite opponent ever? Do you have one? I know there's so many, surely, but if you got a favorite.
Oh yeah. Well, probably the favorite match, best match I ever had. People ask me that all the time. What's your best match? There's a guy lives here in Birmingham. He can't wrestle anymore. He's had a car wreck. His name is Alan Martin, the Rock and Roll RPM. Him and Tommy Davis were the RPMs out in Texas. And he worked for me several times. And he was like, everybody doesn't have natural ability to do wrestling. Some people have to train really hard. Like Brad Armstrong didn't have to train. Brad Armstrong had natural ability. Alan Martin was just probably the most pure. I mean, he could do everything, anytime, and do it well. And I had probably the greatest match I've ever had with him in front of 500 or 600 kids at a high school one day. But Alan Martin, the Rock and Roll RPM, is probably my favorite person to work with because it was like a day off,
Right.
clockwork.
Right. So one more, and then I'm gonna let you go. If you had one piece of advice for any young man or woman wanting to get into the wrestling business, what would it be?
Well, if anybody wants to be in it, you need to get in it for real. The only bad thing is there's no territories anymore. And WWE's probably got 1,000 people trying to get 5 spots on the roster. NXT
Right.
and all that just kind of leads into it, but people are working hard to get it. But I would tell anybody, if they want to do it, to be trained properly. Psychology, learn the psychology. This thing, guys make more money mentally sometimes than they do physically. Some of the best workers in the world weren't very smart, and some of the smartest people in the world couldn't work a lick.
Right.
I won't say too many names, but there's some guys that couldn't do anything, but they were very smart and they knew how to draw people. So, get in it, get trained right, get somebody legitimate that knows what they're doing. I train guys all the time. And my first thing is, if I train you, I'm going to get you booked and make your money back. If those guys won't do that, if people won't do that, then they're not really, really help them. But it's hard to tell somebody that wants to get in this business like me and you did years ago that, hey, you don't want to do it. Yes, they do. And they're going to do it. So, I say just find the best trainer you possibly can, pay the money that it takes to train, get trained properly, and get somebody to book you on some good shows and stay away from this outlaw stuff that gets your neck broke.
When we finally got a hold of Jerry Jarrett, he tried every way in the world to discourage us almost from even coming to try to train. First thing he told my brother was, look, he said, it ain't what you think it is. And he said, honestly, he said, you're lucky if 1, 2, or 3 a year actually make it into the business.
Yep.
And it was almost like he didn't even want us to come. Of course, I'm sure he's had that phone call 10,000 times.
I get them every week.
And probably 9,998 of them, they come, they take a class or two, and then you never see them again.
Out.
I think it's too easy to get in the wrestling business nowadays, and that's one thing. Look, I ain't never got to work like you guys did, never ever. But that's the one thing I try to tell anybody who asks me, any young guy, go find you a reputable trainer, somebody who's got a resume that has been there. They know what they're doing. They've been where you want to try to get to, because you can have any local guy train you at any local show, any guy. That'd be a guy that just got in the ring himself, and if somebody asks him to train, I'll train you. Half the time now, they don't even charge people.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I believe you get what you pay for, too.
That's exactly right.
And I can imagine the changes that you've seen from the time you got in it till now, because it's changed so much just since the 90s.
Oh,
that
unbelievable.
It blows me away sometimes, the things I see happen at some of the shows, and just the mentality of the wrestlers is I think a lot that really gets me. I don't think they look at it the same way. I know they don't look at it the same way I did when I was trying to get into business.
Nor me.
Getting in it.
Me neither.
So Mike, look, I want to run down this card one more time before we get out of here. And man, I appreciate you so much for coming on. It has been a blast.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so it's Saturday, November 2nd in Clarksville, Arkansas. It's a Pro Wrestling Legends show. It's put on by SD Enterprises in conjunction with Diamond State Wrestling. It's going to be held at the Spike Fakiem exhibit building at the fairgrounds there in Clarksville. The Fan Fest part starts at 2 p.m., lasts from 2 to 6. All these fans can come, meet and greet with all you guys, get autographs, take pictures, have conversations with you guys. Bell time for the action, 7 p.m. Some of the talent they're going to see is the Grappler's going to be there. Like I said, I had Lynn on a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Golden Boy Chick Donovan's going to be there. I actually got him coming on tomorrow. Miranda Gordy, Wildfire Tommy Rich. I know you know that guy well. I know y'all held a tag team title together in the distant past.
We sure did, for GCW out of New York.
There you go. Dangerous Doug Gilbert, you got a connection with the family. Brian Kendrick's going to be there. Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Pineapple Jack, new guy. Samantha Starr. And obviously the Perfect 10 baby doll.
Yes.
She'll always be the Perfect 10 to me.
I know her very well. She's a great lady.
A guy named Austin Ariel, Alexander Gold, Preston Vance, and I'm sure there's going to be more of the Diamond State guys there. And you already said it. You don't want to wrestle one of the older guys. You want to wrestle one of these new guys.
I told Dwayne when he called me, I said, if you'll let me work and put me with one of the young guys, don't put me with old guys. I want to go out there and do everything I got.
And ticket prices, front row seats, which I'm assuming this includes the meet and greet. Don't hold me to that. $40 for front row seats. Second and third row seats, which I'm assuming it probably includes the meet and greet too, $30. And then general admissions, $20. It should be an awesome thing. These fan fests are huge. I wish
Yes.
I was. I told you I'm from Arkansas, but I live in Tennessee now. I wish I was in Arkansas, because if I was close enough, I'd actually come to this show and check it out. Mike, man, I appreciate you so much. Like I said, it's been my honor and my pleasure talking with you. And if you ever want to come back, you're more than welcome. All you got to do is let me know, and we'll make it happen, man.
I appreciate it, and if you can, if anybody's listening and wants anything, I have DVDs and T-shirts and all kind of stuff. And you've got my phone number. If they call you and they want to call, and you want to give them my number, tell them to call me. I'll ship it right to them. I got some good DVDs of me tagging with Jake the Snake Roberts and Ric Flair. Matter of fact, I got a tape of me teaming with Jerry Lawler. So, you know, I'd love to get some of those things out there to some of the fans. So if they want to, tell them to get in touch with you, and you get in touch with me.
I'll damn sure do it, man. And I'm assuming you're going to have a lot of this stuff at this fan fest. They can buy some of it.
I will. I'll have that there. Sure will. And I appreciate you having me. And God is good, and I'm blessed. And, you know, I just hope to see you soon. Call me anytime.
Yes, sir, man. It's been my pleasure. Look, you and your wife have a great night. Tell her I appreciate her so much for helping us out here. And y'all have a wonderful night.
You too, buddy. Good luck, man.
Yes, sir.
See you soon.
Yes, sir. Take it easy. All right, guys. You seen it right there. Action Mike Jackson, man. November 2nd, Clarksville, Arkansas. You do not want to miss this show. Going to be a big meet and greet, a fan fest from 2 to 6. The matches start at 7. Like he said, he's going to have merch there to sell. And if you can't get there and you do want to get a hold of some of this Action Mike Jackson merchandise, hit me up and I'll get you in contact with him. Great dude, man. That's the first time we ever met, man, and I enjoyed it so much. Look, guys, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Once again, like this video, share this video, go to Buster H.R. Johnson on YouTube and subscribe. Tomorrow night, we got another bona fide wrestling legend, Golden Boy Chick Donovan, will be here. 7:30, and that's still tentative. It could fluctuate just a little bit either way. We might start a little earlier than that. We might have to start a few minutes later, depending on his schedule, but we're shooting for 7:30 tomorrow night. Do not miss it. Wednesday night, 7 p.m., I got the lowlife Deacon Pierce. Man, you do not want to miss that when he's a Crossroads guy. Man, I'm really anxious to talk to him. Y'all take it easy and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I've got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.